In the shadow of burning cities and divine judgment, Lot's wife walked behind her family with a heart heavy with memories. She was told not to look back, not at her home, not at her past, not at the life she was leaving behind. But how does one abandon a lifetime of laughter, loss, and love without a final glance? This is the story of a woman remembered only for her disobedience, yet rarely for her humanity. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26, KJV. Scripture gives her no name, no speech, no plea, only a glance backward that froze her in time. Yet behind that single turning of the head lived a woman of memory, habit, love, and loss. This is the story imagined between the verses, the story of Lot's wife. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Genesis 13:13, KJV. She had learned to love Sodom despite its shadows. The mornings were warm, the markets loud with color and bargaining voices. From her rooftop, she could see women drawing water, children running barefoot over sun-baked stones, and merchants calling out promises sweeter than truth. Sodom was not only wickedness, it was familiarity. It was where she married, buried her parents, raised her daughters, and kneaded bread each dawn. Lot spoke often of the God who judged cities, of righteousness and warnings. She listened, but her hands were busy with life, threading cloth, sweeping floors, remembering birthdays. Judgment felt distant when the oven was warm, and laughter echoed down the street. Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. Genesis 19:17. The strangers' voices carried urgency like a rising wind. They spoke of fire and brimstone, of a dawn that would not forgive delay. Her daughters trembled. Lot hurried, but she stood still for a moment longer than she should have. What does one take when leaving everything? She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders though the night was warm. She thought of the table she had scrubbed smooth with years of use, the door frame marked with her daughter's heights, the neighbor who owed her a cup of oil. The command was clear, do not look back, but no one had warned her how heavy memory could be. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Genesis 19:24, KJV. They ran as the sky began to roar. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Heat pressed against her back like a breath she could not escape. Ahead was the mountain, unknown, harsh, and empty. Behind was everything she had ever known. Her heart pounded, not with rebellion, but with grief. Was it a sin to mourn, to remember, to love a place that had shaped you, even if it was doomed? Her feet slowed. Her spirit pulled backward, even as her body moved forward. And then she turned. Remember Lot's wife, Luke 17:32. In that single glance lived a lifetime. The city was already dissolving, fire blooming where homes had stood, smoke swallowing laughter, memories unraveling into ash. Her eyes filled, not with defiance, but with longing. And longing, when it outweighs obedience, becomes a weight too great to carry. The wind hardened, her breath stopped, flesh stilled into crystal silence. She stood between past and future, belonging fully to neither. A pillar of salt tears made permanent. The cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous. Genesis 18:20. Night fell hard, voices gathered outside. Demands rose like smoke. She clutched her daughters and prayed, not loudly, not boldly, but desperately. When the door finally closed and silence returned, it was heavier than the noise had been. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, the Lord being merciful unto him. Genesis 19:16. She lingered too. Mercy often arrives wrapped in urgency, and urgency can feel cruel. The command to leave was not gentle. It did not allow time for grief. She felt dragged not only by angels but by fate itself. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Matthew 6:21. She carried nothing but memory, The weight of it bent her spine. Every step away from Sodom felt like an erasing. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Genesis 19:23. The sky burned, the earth groaned. Ahead lay survival, behind lay meaning. Her heart fractured between obedience and love. Remember Lot's wife, Luke 17:32. She turned, not in rebellion, but in farewell. There was no pain at first, only stillness. The wind that had pushed her moments before now passed through her as though she were already part of the land. Her breath halted, not in struggle, but in suspension. Time itself seemed to forget how to move forward. Her last thought was not fear, but recognition. She knew suddenly what it meant to be divided, to belong wholly to memory, while standing in judgment's light. Her body hardened, yet her story pressed outward, carried by the dust and heat, whispering to the hills. And Abraham got up early in the morning and looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis 19:27-28. Lot did not see the moment she turned. He heard it instead, a sound like stone cracking under sudden frost. He stopped, breath ragged, heart knowing before eyes confirmed, but the command still echoed, "Escape for thy life." He wept as he walked on. Survival demanded motion, even when love demanded return. In that tension, he learned the cost of obedience when it arrives too late to save everyone. She stood where she fell, salt catching the sun, sharp against the ruin. Travelers would pass and wonder, children would ask, elders would lower their voices. Her silence became louder than sermons. The land remembered her. Rain traced white lines down her sides. Wind reshaped her edges. Yet she remained, a marker between what was destroyed and what was spared. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Psalm 35. The daughters did not speak her name aloud for many days. In the cave, grief echoed louder than thunder ever had in Sodom. They learned what it meant to be motherless, rootless, unanchored. In their silence, her absence shaped them as surely as her presence once had. What they would later do was born not only of fear, but of loss left unnamed.